Hello, lovers and friends. Welcome back. I'm your host, Josephina, Pussy Priestess Extraordinaire. And I'm bringing that Pussy Priestess energy today as we are talking about one of my favorite conversations and the genesis of Pussy Priestess energy itself, sacred sexuality and raising our vibe to the highest. If you are with my and in my community, you know that I am all about sexual empowerment and using our sexual energy for our experience of liberation in this lifetime. Our one-way ticket to sweet liberation is through the doorway of our sexuality. I truly believe this. I am an absolute stand as well as a teacher for this. And I want to invite and create a space for us today to explore this conversation so that you can not only learn new things, because there's so many things that you can learn, but I want you to apply some of the things that I'm going to teach you. One simple tool, one way to push your edge. And really, I want to create the space as an invitation for you to have a felt experience of what the sacred sexuality experience could be like for you in your life, in your love life, in your sex life, in your spiritual life, and really making on a higher level our sexuality sacred. So let's dive all in. Now, the genesis of this conversation today, as I've done many episodes on sacred sexuality, is based on what I have been seeing on the social media trend, which is this kind of puritanical rebranding. If you're not with me, you can see I'm doing air quotes in the air. If you're watching me on YouTube, you see me, right? So this whole puritanical sacred sexuality where there's instilling fear around the sacred sexuality teachings through this puritanical way, a little bit more of a dogmatic or even a religious way, if you will, when it comes to, again, the control of the expression and the meaning that we are making about our sexuality. Now, this topic for me is one that got heated online when I saw a woman who was the founder of orgasmic meditation, Om Meditation, Nicole. You can check her out. She started posting stuff about this on her storyline and on her feed. And I got into a conversation with her because I did not agree with what she was sharing on her feed. I did not agree with the lies that were being said. Not to say that she did the lies, but more so she was sharing about the lies and was calling forward and kind of bringing a red flag, which I really appreciate the awareness because it created a conversation on us aligning on what sacred sexuality is and what sacred sexuality is not because of the lie that they are telling people in this modern day. And that really lined up very beautifully with what I also saw some of my friends posting in their stories around the same lines, like the universe works in such a beautiful way, where they were posting, again, their own way of however it got into their zeitgeist, that having casual sex is detrimental and draining, and having casual sex with multiple partners for a woman is actually blocking your blessing. It's actually blocking your ability to manifest divine union and the love of your life. And it's a lie. It's a lie that they've been selling, and it's a lie that they've been circulating. And it's a lie that now I'm aware of women are becoming reindoctrinated into and actually having the reverse effects of the primary core teachings of sacred sexuality. Now, sacred sexuality, from my definition, which is backed up by the ancient scientific teachings of the East, yogic teachings, Tantra teachings, Taoism, all state the same thing, as well as my own real life experience and being a teacher of these arts, is that our sexual energy itself is life force energy. Without sex, there is no life. Without life, there is no sex. So sexual energy is our life force energy. By definition, life force energy creates creativity, creates worlds, destroys worlds. We can create and destroy. That's the same energy, the creation and destruction energy. It's the same, right? It is creation in itself, but it's also spiritual energy. And that's where the sacred sexuality comes in, because we are really spiritualizing our sexuality and we are adopting a new framework and philosophy, as well as mindsets and emotions around our sexuality and our sexual energy, one that actually has it and holds it at a much higher consciousness and higher emotional and energetic frequency. If you will, it's bringing it from the lower chakra, from your root center, from our primal animal center, and it's actually raising the vibration of our sexual energy, which is done through practices, all the way to the top of the consciousness scale, to our top of our crown, right? Our God center, our goddess center at the top of our crown. And it's holding it way in that higher vibrational energy and light. And in fact, the full liberation with sacred sexuality is being able to play in both the animal and the primal. And when you choose to, with integrity, with awareness, right, with discernment, then you choose to move it up into the higher consciousness. But essentially, we are taking the energy and we are sending higher up into our consciousness through sex. You heard me right. We are ascending through sex, higher frequency, higher consciousness, higher ecstatic experiences of our life. And that is done when we do the very first piece of these practices. And before I go into that, I'm very passionate to share, because clearly you can hear it. And I've gotten many feedbacks of women saying, wow, Josephine, you're so passionate on your podcast. Like sometimes it's closing or it's confronting. And what I say is great, amazing. You're in my world and you're in my space because you're drawn to it. And again, this is a space that I'm creating right now for us to push the envelope and to lean into you finding your own passion the same way you feel it in me. You pushing the envelope and dropping fear that blocks your ability to ooze and to embody and to exude this amount of life force energy for yourself, because you're that deeply connected to your core root of passion, to your pussy, to your heart, to your spirit. And that you've done one of the first steps here is you've cleared your lower chakras from the guilt and the fear and the anxiety and the anger that has been blocking you to be in your full power. So as always, this episode is an invitation. If it's too much, step away. If you're in it, put your hands up and say, yay, because we're going to dive on into it. And as I'm saying, the first step here is to notice, okay, where do I have judgments around my own level of intensity, my own level of passion, my own level of expression, my own level of creativity, where I can create a moment however I wish to paint with the tapestry of my own consciousness, and to allow higher consciousness that's free of judgment, fear of anxiety, fear of worry, fear of doubt, fear and guilt of anything that I'm saying could be deemed as bad or wrong, like all of that narrative. It's like there's stillness. I'm sharing with a clear, peaceful, elevated state of mind and consciousness. And that's because with sacred sexuality and the teachings, right? It's removing the shame and the guilt and the fear and the anger that are blocking us in our lower chakras, which is our sex center. So our pussy, our cock, if you're a guy listening, right? So our sex center, our genitals, right? And if you're a woman, I invite you to share these teachings with the men. So I'm going to share with you so you can be a steward of this medicine and these teachings, because we need more men initiated into this work. And we go first, and we are the leaders here. That is what it is. And we can accept it or we can reject it. But here comes back. Why would we be angry about it? Because it's blocking us, because we're holding on to it, because it's this contracting energies that's stored inside of us that disconnects us from our full power. And that is stored in our pussy, that is stored in our sex, that is also stored again in our ability to create a relationship with the person of our dreams, with the relationship with our sexuality, with our body, with our desires. And that's blocking us in our sacral chakra, the relationship center, the pleasure center. And it's also stored in the solar plexus as well. And that really is about the identity, the I am, the who do I see myself to be. And if I'm overly identified or still identified with the past version of myself who's experienced trauma or heartbreak or pain, or who's experienced, embarrassment and shame, all of that is being stored in those three lower centers of the body. And that's the beautiful thing with why and how sacred sexuality brings us to raise our vibration into higher vibration, because our sexual energy is designed, right? Scientifically designed, and this has been measured, right? There's scientific proof that says we have energy centers that are circulating and spinning in our body. Research and science has proven this to be true, which is amazing. Now, if we tie it in to the yogic teachings, the scientific teachings as well, we have 72,000 things that are called nadis. And those nadis go from the tips of our toes all the way up to our brain and outside into the aura, but through the entire body. And that is not only connected to our nervous system, it's connected to the vagal nerve as well. And it's connected into the full alignment of our chakra system. And so if we have half of that chakra system, almost half of that chakra system blocked because it's congested and contracted, and we haven't digested these past emotional experiences of guilt or fear or blame, once I said, we're not going to be able to actually slip into and rise into our power, which brings me back to this fear mongering puritanical narrative when it comes to women exploring their sexuality and having casual sex or dating or having lovemaking with multiple partners. This new narrative around sacred sexuality being really, really pure and, holding it very close to the chest and being afraid to exchange energy with anyone else because you're going to leave an imprint on you. And now there's this karmic imprint for the rest of your life that you're going to have to work with. Oh my gosh, right? Now, suddenly, and if you can see me, literally, I'm like down below and my arms are up, and it's like this big weight and fear on top of me, literally talking about it, just pushing down your liberation, pushing down your expression, pushing down the very energy that we want to bring up and liberate to be awakened in higher consciousness. And so this episode is to wake you up, to wake us up, to share and to spread this message that this kind of rebranding of sacred sexuality is actually a lie. And it's a lie that they've been telling specifically women to, again, in some form of a way, create another way of control and repression on the expression of female sexuality. Because more and more women have been waking up to our sexual power. More and more women have been reclaiming their sexuality and their sexual power and their prowess, which is, thank the heavens. Yes, I'm so happy about that, because we need more of that. We need more well-fucked women, to quote Kim Anami as her term. We need more well-pleased women. That's what I say, right? We need more well-loved women. We need more of us on the world and on the planet to be the medicine carriers and to spread the waters of wisdom far and wide, so that the men and the women around us who are ready to drink this wisdom in have a well or a fountain to come to. And for you being in this community, you are that well. You are that wisdom keeper. And that's why it keeps me showing up here and here to share, because this community is such a beautiful community of women and humans. And I know there's some men in here who listen to the show that are interested in it. And I just want to continue to provide information as the world is changing and shifting, and as certain things are being erased from history in a way and being rewritten. And now that's happening, not only with Women's Day being removed from the calendar, which is wild, but again, that doesn't define us. But if I'm angry about it, that's blocking me. If I'm going to be pissed and focused on it, you better believe I'm not going to be in my pleasure. I'm not going to be in my higher goddess consciousness energy because I'm not connected to my sexuality and I'm not playing with the energy of my sexuality to raise my vibration up and higher, to focus on the positive things like celebrating being a woman every single day, like actually doing the work to empower the women around us or empowering women owned businesses. There are a gazillion other creative ways that we can actually be a stand for the thing versus focus on the negative, right? And that's what sacred sexuality gives us. It gives us that higher consciousness of choice, of direction, of focus by not blocking ourselves. And that is us being in our power. That is us being able to embody our power. If we are embodying our focus, if we are embodying the version of ourselves in the future who has the relationship and the man and the mind blowing sex and has the money and the career and everything that she really wants, and she's being that version now, we're being that girl now, and we're not associated with the past and we're not dwelling in the past, boom, we are winning. We are winning. But this can only happen when we accept our sexuality, when we can accept our sexual power versus being afraid of our sexual power. And that's what that narrative is such a lie. And I do not agree with at all. Do not believe the lies. Everything you've been told about sex and sacred sexuality from that perspective has been a lie. Completely. Same thing with relationship. It's been a lie, right? You're not going to just all of a sudden one day, manifest the love of your life by pulling it out of the thin air, by being angry, by focusing on the loneliness and the heartbreak that you've experienced, by staying in a place of angst and anger. It's not going to manifest that way. It's not going to manifest by also constantly thinking you need to fix yourself and fix yourself and fix yourself and go to therapy and do tons and tons and tons and tons of therapy. I don't believe in doing all of that. I believe that therapy has a place and a time for unearthing some of the childhood trauma. I do believe that there's some really good therapy out there. ISF is pretty great to be able to put a name to the emotions and the sensation. I think it's amazing if you find an ISF therapist because they don't keep you just stuck in the story. They at least help you understand it. But the reason why I love the sacred sexuality practices is because we can bypass the story and get to the root of the emotion and the energy by feeling with it, by sitting in the fire with it, and by transmuting the energy. Because by law, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. And sacred sexuality helps us to transmute the lower energies without even needing to know the story through using breath and sound and movement and intention. So, for example, right, if I'm noticing, right now, the way that I'm relating to casual sex, the way that I'm relating to having multiple partners is one that feels angst and shameful and disempowering, one that makes me feel afraid to exchange my energy with someone because it's going to leave this karmic imprint. Well, first of all, you're in relationship to every single thing in your life all the time, no matter what. This is a world of relationships. And so the more that you realize that you're in a relationship to everything and everything, the more that you can be in your power to the meaning that you make of these relationships. So, for example, the barista, when you go get your coffee in the morning, you're exchanging energy with that barista. You're exchanging energy with that cashier person. You're exchanging energy all the time. Now, the difference is like this puritanical perspective would say, oh my gosh, wow, that person, I've just exchanged energy. I was kind to them. I was smiling to them. I opened up my heart and my energy to them. Oh no, now I'm forever tied to them and I have this karmic imprint. And what are they going to think? And maybe they think that I like them. And maybe I was too open. All of that is blocking. All of that is, again, a disempowering way of viewing the way that you're exchanging your energy. And you're making that imprint, because we're always imprinting on each other. We're in a universe that is full of imprints, right? Everything is in an imprint. There's symbols, mathematical equations, like everything is imprinting upon another, right? That's higher level conversation. But to not go on a tangent here, it's like everything is imprinting one another. However, when we are in our conscious awareness, we get to decide the meaning that we make of the interaction and the imprint. So that barista that I exchanged energy with, some of you may not even think about or remember the barista. You might have been on your phone. You might have been texting somebody, talking to somebody, scrolling on Instagram, whatever you're doing. You probably weren't even aware of the imprint and the connection, right? Because it was that minimal focus and that minimal meaning or no meaning that you gave it. There's no difference in having a sexual encounter and having and dating multiple partners, right? And this is not just polyamory, because that's one avenue. I'm talking about like there's a framework that I give to the women who come to me to work with me that are serious about manifesting their partner. There's a framework that I give them in our coaching, and it is guaranteed, tried and true. I've used it. I've helped hundreds of women use it. They are all in deeply committed, loving relationships, fully monogamous, having babies, living their best life, like being so well fucked, multiple orgasms, so happy, like really in charge of their lives, living unabashed and totally free. Now, in the framework, you are the one in charge for the interactions, the meaning you're making, and how you choose with your discernment to share and give your energy. But in order to get to that framework, like I said, the first step is to use the breath and the movement. So back to the barista, if I am having that conversation, I'm making it mean all those things. That means I'm storing it in my bottom parts of my chakra system. Now, science has proven, right, that is going to clog up and contract us. Now, in order to attract what we want, we need to be open and magnetic, opposite of what we want, right? That's not liberation. And so simply bringing that awareness to, right, intention, awareness. Oh, I'm judging myself, or I'm judging the experience, or I'm judging my expression, right? I'm not accepting that I'm the one that's creating this experience, right? I'm in some sort of judgment or some angst or some anxiety. So right there, bring awareness to it, and then use your breath. Take those deep breaths through the nose, out of the mouth. And you can't see me on video, but I'm literally moving, right? I'm kind of slithering, moving my body left and right, back and forth, right? So I'm thinking about it, I'm releasing it, I'm using my breath, and I'm using movement. And that's it. I'm not going to go into a whole story around it, because the sacred sexuality and these embodied practices, we don't really need to know all the details of the childhood of why. It's like, can we clear it? Can we heal it? Can we integrate it? Boom. And can we ascend from it? That's where the liberation comes from. And that's where we use, again, the breath and the movement as a pleasure portal to access the higher consciousness. The more you allow yourself to feel, the more you allow yourself to expand energetically, the more you're going to experience the deep pleasures of life. And through this, we honor our sexuality as sacred, because it really guides and connects us to the body and the spirit within us. And it's about integration, not disassociation or rejection. It's about desire. It's about devotion. It's about self-love, and it's about divine connection. And so when we embrace our sexual energy at its core, and we start to let go and we transmute these lower density energies, right? I'm rolling my hips right now. I'm just thinking and creating an intention. I'm transmuting this energy, right? Having the intentionality to transmute, and then moving your hips, moving your body, taking those deep breaths. Instantly, it's a hack. You will feel it different right away. And you won't just heal, you'll ascend in that moment. And so let's use the barista example for dating, and for if you're having multiple lovers or multiple loverships or multiple people that you are dating, right? Oftentimes, women come to me and they are wanting to date and they want to just date one person. Now, you can date one person. That's totally, totally fine to just date one person, right? And Tantra actually views sex and connection with multiple people as a very powerful energetic expansion. Now, let me just give a little caveat here, right? Caveat here. I'm not saying that in order to magnetize the love of your life, you have to go off and like fuck a lot of people and go be polyamory and, go super unconventional and non-traditional and that's spiritual. No, 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 no. I'm definitely not saying that. Right. So classical Tantra emphasizes deep spiritual union with one devoted partner. Shiva Shakti dynamic. This is the dynamic that me and my beloved fiance have. Deep devotion, deep partnership, sacred union, eyes for each other, obsessed with each other in such playfulness and childlike innocence and so much gusto and sexiness, but also eroticism. And it's exactly what the both of us wanted and have created. And we were seeking it out. And there's a Neo Tantra interpretation, which is to explore polyamory that can be sacred or explore open relationships, which can be sacred. The key piece, though, is approaching it with sacred reverence, integrity, and alignment. Sacred reverence, integrity, and alignment. So no matter what you do, what you choose to explore, right? And my framework, right? My framework includes two other people, two other men, along with your one man that you're really interested in, because it's going to allow you to expand your energetics for more. And it doesn't mean you have to have sex with them or sleep with them, and again, you can go back and listen to one of my previous episodes called Dating Differently. I give you the exact framework. I give you what role each of the men play and how it actually serves you in your energetic expansion to attract like your soul partnership, because you're not coming from a needy or a grabby energy. You're coming from a very big, expanded aura and energy field. And so having multiple loverships or having multiple men that you're dating or multiple partners that you're dating can actually be a path to expansion when it's done with that integrity, when it's done with the deep presence, and when it's done with a way that you are actually leading yourself with alignment. Now, again, the spark and the genesis of this was saying that if women do this, they're going to block it. If women do this, they're going to be depleted. If women do this, right? There's again this distorted, contorted narrative around the feminine expression of her sexuality and what she chooses to do. It's not true. It's actually not true. And from my own experience as well, it's not true. I became more magnetic and way bigger by having multiple men that I was in connection with, not sleeping with necessarily, but in connection with. Because when a woman feels like she's worshiped and adored, not just from one source, but from multiple sources, her cup is so, 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 so full that when she's going to choose from alignment, it's going to be so clear and be so overflowing. It's not going to be coming from her beggar tray. It's not going to be coming from her desperately trying to fill up her cup and her well. Because again, we can do all the self-care that we want, which is great. But until we step into dating and relating and lovemaking before you're in a committed relationship and exploring and tasting multiple people, how are you going to know your capacity to experience yourself? The sacredness and the power of your sexual energy based on all of these different beautiful teachers, and expansion points that are going to help you get more clear. And usually, why this doesn't happen or why this scares women, it's easier to play the victim card and say, oh, if I have casual sex, then I'm going to block my blessing. I'm going to block my. It's easier to be a victim than it is to be a creator because it takes a lot more responsibility to create an extraordinary life than it is to be mediocre. Yes. And in order to have an extraordinary love life and extraordinary sex life, it requires you to actually step up to higher extraordinary standards for yourself, for your sex, for the way you're engaging. And so instead of limiting and repressing your sexual energy, the opportunity is to actually let your sexual energy guide you into the edges of where you are still holding back guilt, worry, fear, shame, and anxiety around sex, around your body, around you being in your power, around you losing control, around you not having boundaries, about you having a fear of conflict or a fear of communication. Because that's actually the evolutionary opportunity that sex and sacred sexuality brings you. Is you can't play it small and be mediocre and just blame this whole guilt game. There's no space for that. It's radical responsibility for your emotions, for if you get attached too easily, if you want to push things, if you're afraid of things, if you're in doubt, if you're in uncertainty. That's where it's like, oh, girl, you got to come back home and do again that transmutation work of fear, of grip, right? It's actually a higher level practice to be in the dojo, like multiple dance partners, to brush up on your skills, which each of these different partners are going to give you new skills, new ways of communicating, new ways of expanding, that just by playing it soft and being mediocre and sitting on the sidelines and blaming, I can't have sex or I can't open up because it's going to block my blessing and because it's going to deplete me and drain me and I believe that I'm a victim, it's going to only delay your blessing. It's going to keep you in that cycle of victimhood. It's going to keep you disembodied, disempowered. And again, you're forgetting that everything in the universe is energy and that no matter what, you are always in an energetic exchange. The difference is when you bring your awareness to the exchange and you decide to make meaning that the energy is sacred between the two of you, whatever the activity is. It could be sacred to go on a walk. It could be sacred to share something emotional. It could be sacred to share about your past or share stories, right? It could be sacred to have a one-night stand if it's done with integrity and deep presence and care and awareness. Absolutely, it can be when we show up with that. And it does create karmic ties, but positive karmic ties because of how we showed up and the meaning that we made and the love that we gifted and chose to share. It opens us up more deeply. And the only way that it drains us is if we're unconscious. We're being super lackadaisy, going unconscious in these experiences, going along and doing things that we don't want to do, not knowing how to have a boundary or not knowing how to say no, just letting life happen to us. And that's where that interpretation comes from, because they only gave the partial truth, which is why it's a lie, right? The full truth is that the only thing that makes it an energetic entanglement and a depletion of your energy by having casual sex or multiple partners is the lack of presence, is the lack of integrity, is the lack of awareness. It's the lack of care, and it's the meaning that you're making it, which is not sacred. When you make it sacred, when you make it in service to your evolution, when you make it in service to your liberation and your empowerment, wow, are you filled and taken to so much higher levels of consciousness of joy and divinity, right? And so that's the beautiful, beautiful opportunity here that I wanted to share with you all today. And, the core lesson of all of this is that both Tantra and Taoism really emphasize, right? And all of that is kind of what's encompassed into sacred sexuality is consciousness, intentional sexuality, rather than mindless overconsumption or indulgence with lack of presence and consciousness. That's the core fundamental difference, my loves. That's what makes sex sacred versus sex being depleting or sex being mundane, right? There's a psychology behind it, behavioral psychology behind it. There's spiritual psychology behind it. There's energetic science and quantum science behind it. And these have all shown us, highlighting, right, that we are in an energetic universe. And what is consciousness? It's energy. And so my invitation is to explore raising your consciousness, especially raising and awakening and activating your goddess consciousness through sex and through playing with your sexuality and your sexual energy consciously, intentionally, in reverence, in mindfulness, with emotional responsibility, with integrity, with what's really good for you, which you'll know more and more the more you're exploring, and with deep, deep connection to your heart, to your yes, to your no, to your body, to your sex, to your pleasure, to your desires, to your God, goddess divine above you, so that you can bring that deep connection to your partner and you can transmute any type of past traumatic experiences without going into it through the interaction with another. That other person can actually not be your wound mate or your trauma mate, but they can actually be your mate in alchemizing. They could be your mate in transmuting and ascending. And that to me is such a more beautiful practice and perspective to adopt as you are exploring, because the more that you are touched, the more that you are loved, the more you're in connection, the more you are exploring, the more vibrant you are, the more alive you are, the more creative you are, the more magnetic you are, and the more you actually are a match and open to receiving the biggest energetics of your dreams. So thank you for coming into this space with me today, for learning with me. Take that exercise that I gave you in regards to transmutation. Notice, where is it in your lower chakras? Is it in your root? Is it in your sacral? Is it in your solar plexus? When you think about it, put your hand on it, have an intention to transmute it, move your hips, move your body, breathe, make sound, and allow yourself to just let it go and accept what's there more and more. If you love this episode, make sure that you share it with a friend. Also, leave me a review. It really helps the show grow. Sending you guys so much love and so much more goodness to come. Bye for now.